Welcome to my Reboot for Health kitchen. Today we're talking about making sauerkraut. Now, I'm not the greatest fan of sauerkraut, particularly the stuff that you buy in the store. And so I've never really eaten it until I discovered a really simple recipe for making sauerkraut at home. And it really is that simple. So we're going to put together a short video for you today just to show you how simple homemade sauerkraut can be. I'm going to show you a batch that I made last week and have a little bit of a taste test so you can see how good it really is. So today we're starting with 3 different types of cabbage, and these were bought from our local markets. So they're an organic cabbage and they're beautiful. So we have a red cabbage, a sugarloaf cabbage, which is a nice sweet cabbage, and just your standard ordinary cabbage. And the first thing you have to do is slice them up. So we're only going to use half of the normal cabbage, just because I want to use the sugarloaf and the red one. The red gives it a beautiful colour in the sauerkraut. So just cutting out the hard centre bits, and we're going to use a slicer just to make it easy. If you don't have one of these, just a knife will do, but just try and get it as fine as you can because it makes it a little bit nicer. So just slicing it through the slicer. And you end up with a nice, fine, sliced cabbage, which is what you're looking for your sauerkraut. So tip that into a bowl and continue with your other colours. Once you've done a couple of slices of your cabbage, good idea to put a little bit of salt through it. So for 2 kilos of cabbage, we're going to use 3 tablespoons of salt. Start with sprinkling a little bit of salt over the first batch that we've done, and that can sit and wait until we keep adding. So just sprinkling a little bit of salt over. Now the salt helps pull out the moisture in the cabbage, which is exactly what you want, because you want to have a bit of water or moisture in the sauerkraut as you put the compression over it to make sure that none of the oxygen gets to the kraut while it's fermenting. So now we're on to the sugarloaf cabbage. Okay, so now we've chopped up all the cabbage and we have it in our bowl. We've already put 1 tablespoon of salt in, so we're going to put we're just going to do another heaped one to start with, and we're going to see how we go. We're also going to include in here some caraway seeds and some juniper berries. They just add a little bit of extra flavour to the sauerkraut. So 2 tablespoons of caraway seeds and 2 tablespoons of the juniper berries. Okay, now with very clean hands, this is where you get nice and dirty. So just using your hands, get in there and mush it all up, get all the salt mixed through the cabbage, and you're basically wanting to bruise the cabbage to start releasing the water. So you can see now that with all that pressing and squeezing that we've got some nice moist cabbage and there's lots of juice in it. So it's really important that you get to this point. You want to make sure that there's lots of moisture in your sauerkraut, because when you put it in your crock and you press it down, you want to make sure that there's plenty of juice covering everything. It stops the oxygen from getting to it, and it stops everything, all the sort of nasties and stuff growing in your sauerkraut, and allows your sauerkraut to ferment properly. So it's really important to get to that stage. So now that we're there, we're going to put it in a crock, we're going to weigh it down, I'm going to put it on a bench and let it sit for. So this is a crock that I've got. It's not a proper sauerkraut crock, it's a pottery glaze pot, and this is really good for fermenting. So just one that I picked up from a second-hand shop. So we're just going to throw all of that in there, make sure it's nice and clean, of course. So put all your cabbage in. Make sure that beautiful juice that you've got in the bottom of that bowl goes in as well, because that's the important part. And now what you want to do is you want to make sure that you press your cabbage right into the bottom of the crock. So you're just using a fist and just pressing it into it, and you'll see the water coming up, or the juice from the cabbage coming up. Just going to get in closer a little. and that's a really good sign that the salt's working and that you've given it enough pressing. So the next thing you do is just grab a little saucer or a plate that will fit inside your crock, put it upside down, press it over the top of your sauerkraut, and then give it a good press. So put some weight into it, and you can see the juice will be coming over the plate, which is a really good sign. That means you've got lots of really good juice in there for your fermenting. The last step is to put something heavy on top to keep that weight down. Make sure that there's no cabbage around the outside of your crock that's not covered with the liquid, because that's what will go mouldy while it's sitting on your cupboard fermenting. So just make sure that all of that cabbage is firstly under the water and that there's nothing on the sides of your crock. Then the last step is to put a heavy weight on it. I use a jar like this full of water because it's easy. Pop him on the top of the plate, press it down, make sure all that liquid's still covering your sauerkraut. Then we just cover it with a cloth and the lid of the crock. Covering with a little bit of cheesecloth or just a bit of fabric. You want to make sure that no bugs or bits and pieces, creepy crawlies can get in there. So once you've got the lid on it, store it in a coolish place. You don't want it to be too hot, but your kitchen will probably be fine. Check it fairly regularly, make sure that there's plenty of water or juice covering the cabbage, and let it sit for a couple of weeks. In a couple of weeks you can open it up, taste it. This is one that we've made earlier, and you can see there's lots of purple cabbage in this one, which is what gives it that beautiful colour, and it will just taste very yummy. So I'm going to have a good taste. Much better than bought stuff. So thanks for joining us for our sauerkraut lesson today. If you want more information, subscribe now and follow us on rebootforhealth.com.au. We'll see you in the next video.